welcome to group Dana and the boys discussion about the future of football. So a little background on the subject. I'm sure many of you are all, as well as all of us, are familiar with the game of football. It's America's most popular sport. It has the biggest participation rate in high schools around the country. People are pretty familiar with football, but as more information is coming out, we're figuring out that more and more brain injuries, especially long-term injuries, I'm sure many of you have heard about CTE, have been correlated with participation in football, and the effects of CTE are pretty detrimental. Many famous players, the biggest example here in San Diego is Junior Seau, suffered from CTE, and he ended up committing suicide, many believe because or what his family member said, that he was so distraught with not being able to remember things because his brain just wasn't functioning the same way. Also, famous NFL running back Tony Dorsett. There's an article online that says, he has perfect long-term memory. He can tell you about his 99-yard run in the last game of the season during the 1970s, and can tell you about a specific block that was made by a specific player, but he can't remember who drove him back home from the gym 10 minutes ago. He struggles to do it, tries to figure it out, and it's very frustrating. And a lot of players have begun suffering these same effects. And as we learn more and more and hear about the problems that are correlated with participation in football, we're kind of discuss where we go from here and what the future of football could entail.
Yeah, totally. I think, at least for football, it's moving in a good direction. Is that CTE is, we're aware of CTE, we're aware of most of the effects, or at least some of the effects of CTE, but I think what you kind of just touched upon is we had Junior Seau who committed suicide from it, and then we have the other player that you mentioned who hasn't had any suicidal ideation that we know, but at least he's like having sort of the brain trauma of that amnesia, that what is it, interrogate amnesia. And so I think, which kind of raises the question, is that I think the NFL is kind of saying that they know a lot about CT, but the truth is we don't, because there's so many other effects that we can have. You think of Aaron Hernandez was just someone who came off as had a much higher level of aggression that's kind of normally seen in people in general. Trying to think of other examples, but essentially it's like, we just don't know all the symptoms yet of CT, and the research is there and it's moving in that direction, but one of the scariest parts is we just don't know all the effects yet.
And we've also found out a lot more though than we knew before, so now that we're more informed with how dangerous football can be, it's up to the individual's decision. And a lot of people use football as a scholarship program to get into colleges or attend high schools, and if we get rid of football, that'd be taking away a lot of opportunities for many students across the country.
Yeah, I agree with Dana. So many people play the sport, football, and I don't really see a huge change occurring even with all this information about CTE. And I don't think it's really going to change the sport just because there's so much money associated with the NFL, and they're making an outrageous amount of money. And along with NCAA, they're also making a ton of money. So I think they're trying to brush under the rug, this whole concussion protocol deal, and they're trying to make it seem like it's not as big as a problem as it is. So I don't really see a lot of change occurring as far as football goes.
Now that you kind of brought up the NCAA a little bit, that kind of brings up a different topic. I don't know if everyone's aware, but recently, or at least a couple years ago, within the past couple of years, there was a vote at USD from 100 faculty members on whether or not to remove the football team, because it was placed by 3 professors, and their argument was, we're a place of learning, a place where we're supposed to develop minds. Why would we continue to have a sport on our campus that is known to actively injure brains and go against everything that a college institution is supposed to do, which seems like a fairly logical argument. This ended up being shot down at a vote of 50 to 26 or something like that. There were a fair amount of abstentions, and a lot of the professors felt as if there was more to learn football wasn't just a negative thing. It wasn't just hurting brains. There's a lot to learn in regards to leadership and teamwork and perseverance that couldn't necessarily be taught in the classroom. And in addition, our college or our football players graduate at a higher rate than the average male student as well. So they didn't see any merit in taking away the football team or removing it from our campus. But it does beg the question, like, colleges are supposed to improve the mind. Should they be allowing a sport that, where concussions and brain injuries are so regularly found?
Yeah, but that could apply to like all sports as well. And so it's not just football that the brain injuries are coming from, but we're not going to take away every college sport just because there could be consequences to our health.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Football is kind of made out to be like this poster for CT, or like the bad guy in the whole situation. But you have soccer players, baseball players who are also suffering from concussions just because in the nature of contact sports, people are hitting their heads. So it's one to address in football, but it also needs to be addressed throughout all athletics because it is an issue, and it does have an effect on these athletes at a young age if they're starting there.
Well, I think more importantly too is that these kids are voluntarily playing the sport. They're not being forced to play the sport. So I mean, they know the risk. They know what potentially can happen to them, and they still go play anyway. And so I mean, to take that away from them doesn't really make sense because they acknowledge the risk. They know what can happen, and you touched on a great point. Football is more than a game. It's about helping the community. A lot of those guys are out in the community helping underprivileged kids. And they're just positive beacons for people to look up to, and to take away that sport, would be just a disservice to the society, really. So it's much more than a game, and there's risk involved, but it's something that they take on knowingly, and it's something that we need because it's more about the game. It's about leadership. It's about perseverance and determination and teamwork and brotherhood. And so, there's a lot that goes into it, and to, strip that away from them voluntarily agreeing to play, it wouldn't be right. So I don't really see much of a change. The only change is how can we make the game safer? That's the question.
I agree with that because you're right. It's just the information's there now. People know that these head injuries are common and that they happen. It's not so much what it was in the past where like the NFL was trying to hide all this information. But it's known now, so they do take the risks, and you're right, there's kind of like, there are a lot of benefits to sports, and you have the cost being that head injury and kind of how that weighs among all the benefits that sports do provide in the community. And then as Dana mentioned with scholarships, football somehow, I mean, the only way some kids can get to school is through football. So you have to weigh that against, okay, is it worth the possible lifelong effects of CT?
Yeah, especially when it's like their own decision to do that. Like you said, no one's being forced into it, and taking away possible scholarships would really take away so many possibilities from so many children. But would you guys agree that people who watch football, does that mean that they're in support of possible brain injuries?
It's definitely a gray area because if you're watching it, you're clearly supporting it, and like I said, everyone now knows that every time someone gets hit, they're suffering brain damage. As far as where you exactly stand on that, does that make you a bad person to watch football, watch sports, and watch people get hurt?
I mean, I don't think a lot of people watch football games like thinking about, wow, this guy
Right.
could
Yeah.
suffer
Right.
damage for the rest of his life. So I don't think a lot of people think about that. And I really don't think they're bad people for watching it. But I mean, it's just how is there a way we can make the helmet safer? Is there a way we can figure out a way, some new technology that could make it so it's harder to receive brain damage after taking a hit? But yeah, I don't know. There's some gray area there.
Yeah, I mean that's like that kind of like rides along this like same gray area of like kids playing games where you kill people and things like that. Like,
Right.
it doesn't make you a bad person for playing the game or like anything like that. And I don't think it makes you a bad person to watch football even with the knowledge that CT is. And I think if you get like, you understand that these people are in danger, and when you see an injury, like you worry for them. I think that's like a common reaction. I don't think anyone sees someone go down with an injury and says like, oh, thank goodness I got my worth out of this game or anything like that. And yeah, and it's like, it's definitely tough. But I don't think like viewership will end up going down even though like things have like viewership has decreased recently, I don't think it's because people are saying like, oh, these people are suffering brain injuries, let's not watch it. Or
Yeah,
anything
it's
like
not a way to boycott it,
Yeah.
is to not watch football.
Yeah, exactly. I think kind of then looking at the future of football, you have to look at our youth and kind of what steps then do we take to keep
Mhm.
kids healthy when they're in that
Mhm.
stage of brain development. Do you limit at which point kids start actual helmet contact football? Do you do flag football up to a certain age and then let them move into tackle football? What do you guys think?
See, that's a tough area because, you know, they gotta learn at some point. You know, if they want to get these scholarships, they gotta be good right away at a middle school or whatever it is. You know, they can't afford to wait to learn. Otherwise, you know, they might not get that scholarship that changes their life. So I mean, at what age? That's a great question. What age, you know, do you mix them into that? And I mean,
I know, looking at the story right now, California wanted to pass a law that not until age 12 could kids play tackle football. So before then they would do flag football, and then up to 12. And some people think it needs to be 14. Some people say even up till high school, and that even creates a risk. Then you have to teach kids how to tackle in high school when they should hopefully know how to tackle properly at a younger age to kind of reduce those injuries.
And what I think like you would have to do like to kind of, you know, level the playing field. So like, you know, even if they needed to learn how to play, like if everyone had the same like cutoff date, like if it was a federal law and not like a state to state law, like year to 12, year to 14, it would like even out everyone's ability to like learn at the same time. So then like, you know, people would still be competitive, but there may be like, maybe those people that are, it may hurt the people that really like are like kind of those like teamwork guys that really like grow throughout like playing more and more games. It would hurt them potentially, which would be tough.
well, it would for sure hurt
Yeah.
the people, those first year people, because
It
all those
definitely-
people in college,
Mm.
or they were older than them, they already
Oh,
know.
that's true.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, they could
Yeah.
totally beat up on
You bring
the.
up it's a really
new
good
guys.
point.
Mm.
If you have like California like bars kids from playing tackle football to high school, but you then have kids in Washington that can play tackle football at age 12,
Yeah.
you're clearly gonna get kids who are better at football
Advantage.
other than Washington, and you're gonna lose scholarship opportunities out of California.
And the whole problem with the whole finding new technology in those like high schools, like they can't afford that. They can't
Yeah.
afford to spend that type of money on gear that would prevent them from receiving concussions. So it's a huge area that needs, you know, we need to find a solution to. So
What's the normal age that tackle football started?
It's a good question. It's
I mean,
probably one age.
Like middle school?
I mean, it starts as young as like,
I think even younger.
like
Yeah.
sixth
grade. I mean,
I know some like
helmets?
young,
Really?
young kids that have played tackle
Yeah.
football.
Wow.
my
Yeah.
elementary school played.
Yeah, I remember kids in my high school.
And it's,
Wow.
but it's also weird because like there is the argument that like generally kids are much better at bouncing
Yeah,
back from
yeah.
injuries.
Yeah.
Like
And I got
And it,
hit
like,
as hard.
And it's
it-
not as like
it's
yeah.
not as violent. Like it's
That's true. You're
there's
right.
also like they also like even though they're still developing brains, like isn't it not true that children's brains are like have better like regeneration.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
exactly.
it's like-
There's much.
Yeah. So like the arguments there that like
Would that even make
Like,
a big difference in
yeah.
like this huge problem that
Yeah.
we're facing?
and like is the benefit higher that they're learning how to tackle correctly and able to learn the rules of like, you know, how to like safely handle situations and things like that, and just learn it from a young age. Does that outweigh the potential cost of like
Right.
not letting them play and learn those things? So
Yeah.
Well,
so-
I think the big question is the college and the NFL game. That's where the most damage is being done.
Yeah.
So I think we're on the right track with how you can tackle people. Like I think you can't do it above the shoulder, right? You can't
Yeah.
go head to head.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So I think we're on this right track there, but some of the guys still do it.
Yeah.
And that's the only right track, and I think there's only so far you can go
Mhm.
without completely destroying the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely. Even the NFL's trying to take their steps, as in like they're moving the kickoff or the touchback line further up
Mhm.
so that people do take knees in the end zone more often rather than running the ball out. So there's a lot of injuries that happen during kickoffs. And then they're of course discussing just removing kickoff in general to just avoid those like two guys running full speed and
Straight
taking a hit.
Yeah.
So but then people say that ruins the game. Personally, as a fan, I like kickoffs. doesn't make me a bad person like we talked about, but you do definitely teeter on the line of, okay, at what point do you start to really gain?
excitement.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess to wrap up our discussion, moving forward, what do we do? I think continuing research in CT is definitely one. I think players themselves have to be more responsible. I think honesty with your symptoms is key. I think at the NFL, or I mean at the college level, from what I understand, even the NCAA doesn't have like a full like NCAA wide regulation on how concussions are handled. They have sort of guidelines, but there's no set way to regulate it. Every school makes their own regulations. But definitely trying to educate players more in those symptoms and kind of the consequences if you aren't honest with those symptoms is something. If you guys have other stuff to add, kind of moving forward.
I read in an article someone said a quote like, you know, we were able to put a man on the moon. Like, I think we could probably make a helmet that'll protect us to play football. And I tend to agree. I think we've done some cool stuff. We could probably figure this out. Like more research there.
Yeah. Maybe
and-
bigger consequences if like you're trying to tackle above the shoulders or whatever the line was. But other than that, what everyone else said, it's a great idea.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure, just to end things up, I'm pretty sure the NFL, if you get hurt, you get cut and you lose your contract.
Yeah, which is also an issue.
Which that's a reason why a lot of guys don't own up to their symptoms.
Yeah,
But
it's very true.
so maybe that could be another area where we could fix up. The NFL won't like that.
Yeah, but that's a
some
great idea
protection
though.
for
You
them.
can't, add protection for players that are going through concussion protocol and
Right.
giving them some leeway so that they are being more honest. That's definitely true. Like a
they
younger
take
player that,
recovery time.
even like when you get like these all-star players who are getting paid millions who definitely won't get cut, but they still lie about their symptoms because they want to play.
Yeah.
That's hard to combat. But with like these more less proven players that are like, hey, if I'm like having this concussion protocol for 2 weeks, I'm gonna get cut because you're an asset, you're a number to them, and if you're not performing, they'll cut you. It's definitely a good point.
All right.
Well,
Thanks everyone.
All right. Thanks so much.